Hello everyone, my name is Pavli and welcome to the very first video on this channel that is not a music video. In this video we're gonna cover pretty much everything related to Project Wingman soundtrack. You're gonna get a lot of information about how I made it and the decision we made along the way. At first, there was supposed to be only one video giving you a rough list of all the themes and melodies in the soundtrack and what or who they are attached to. While making the video, it became a 15 minutes long one and I quickly realized everything I wanted to say couldn't fit into one single video. So I've decided to make two instead. So welcome to the first part of Project Wingman's soundtrack behind the scenes.
Hitman Team, you're entering dangerous airspace. Recommend you turn back now and complete your other objectives before proceeding.
Instrumentation has obviously changed along the way. As the story was taking shape, we kept adding sounds and instruments to the existing palette we had. However, some core elements were already decided since the Kickstarter back in 2018. To give you a little bit of context, when I was approached by Matt, the writer, back in 2017, the main reference soundtrack RB had for Project Wingman was Nier Automata. As a big Nier fan, I was happy to hear that, because I absolutely loved the Nier Automata soundtrack, and I felt very excited to potentially score a game with this as a reference. However, I had to convince RB I could be a good fit for his game. So instead of going to sleep, I've decided to make a demo and send it straight to RB. This demo then became Calamity. And believe it or not, it hasn't changed much since. The Calamity track you hear in the game is pretty much the track that got me on board. It already had what became later on the main theme of the game. So the main reason Calamity feels heavily inspired by Nier Automata's soundtrack, it's because at that time, this was the only info I had, and I just wanted to show RB I was versatile and able to adapt my style to match his expectations. And I believe it worked, because here I am, more than 3 years later, telling you about how I've created the whole soundtrack for the game. So, while Nier Automata's soundtrack was our first reference, it was not the only one. Quickly after getting funded on Kickstarter, I told RB my priority was to give Project Wingman a unique sound and instrument palette. Before even thinking about themes or melodies, we had to agree on what exactly Project Wingman's soundtrack should sound like. We realized that the current tracks in the game, so Calamity and Clear Skies, were giving a sense of freedom, and the lyrical strings were fitting the Independence Force, Hitman Team, and the fight for freedom in general. Therefore, we decided to attach the main melody of the game to Project Wingman, as a game of course, but also to that sense of freedom you are supposed to fight for. And keep that in mind, because it will have its importance later on. For the Federation theme, we wanted to create a contrast. We naturally went for a more industrial, electronic and brassy sound for everything related to the Federation. If you pay attention, most of the time the Federation theme is played on the brass. And here's what it sounds like. What's very interesting, in my opinion, is that this melody is played and used in different ways. For example, as you make progress in the campaign and watch the Federation slowly losing the fight, its theme becomes less frightening. It almost starts to make you feel guilty for what you're doing. As you can hear, the music is slowly telling you that in the end, it might not be as simple as the good guys fighting the evil. Music already knows that this war is not so simple. Now that we have that sense of duality between the two camps fighting each other, we obviously had to give Hitman Team its own musical identity. For the Hitman Team theme, I had to keep three things in mind. First of all, they're all mercenaries. They are not directly involved in the conflict and are only doing this for money. When I suggested electric guitars, riffs and solo to picture that, Matt and RB approved immediately. Feels very rock and roll to risk your life in the sky for some money, right? The second element I had to consider was the fact that there are three: Deep, Comic and Monarch, and an easy way to give them a theme is to have only three notes playing. I'm sure you're thinking, how can we have a theme with only three notes? Well, it is more of an ostinato. Rapid violin notes playing in the background, playing quickly, a repetitive motif. You can hear this ostinato in many missions. Try to focus on the three notes playing in the background. The last thing I had to consider was Monarch. I had to give him a leitmotif that could be used during key moments. While he's the main character of the game, I decided not to give him a melody, because the game is actually not really about him, but more about the conflict around him. Therefore, Monarch also has an ostinato attached to him. You first hear it in Magma Carta. And of course, in Kings. Now, an interesting thing I did was playing themes together. In Valkyrie's Call, for example, the opening is clearly telling you that this is the Fed against Hitman Team. Try to notice how the violins are starting with the Federation theme and ends with the three notes from Hitman Team theme. Blending themes together to make the music actually saying things is something I've done a lot in Project Wingman. One of the best examples is in Eminent Domain. During the second half of the track, I managed to fit Hitman's 3 notes ostinato on the violins in the background, with the Federation theme underneath with the brass. And right after, a variation of the main theme is played by the trumpets and the high strings. And that's it for the first part. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. In the next video, we're gonna cover all the other themes that we didn't cover in this one. The themes for Crimson Team, Crimson One, the Sky, the Accordion, and even the main theme played reversed in order to emphasize a pretty important subject from the story. See you in the part 2.